This is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, Jeremy Rutherford, and Jeff Burton on 101 ESPN.
The Last Minute Blues Podcast is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofing.com for a free inspection.
What's up, everybody? It's the Last Minute Blues Podcast. It's brought to you by Blue Note Roofing, roofing, siding, and gutters, your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for a free inspection. Happy, I guess we say happy, well, we don't say Happy New Year yet. Almost New Year.
Yeah.
Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, also handling your Blues pre- and post-game, and our dude Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic hanging out today in an absolutely
Look at this guy.
phenomenal blazer.
I'm ready for New Year's.
Do you guys do stuff on New Year's?
Yes and no. I mean, do stuff? Probably not. I like to stay home on New Year's. This year, I'm going to be doing pre and post game for the Blues.
Oh, crap, that's right.
Yeah, but I actually enjoyed New Year's. I've made it like a thing with my family to where we always stay up and get to watch the ball drop and watch all the stuff. And JR's dressed like Dick Clark tonight. So,
JR, you got to be having plans.
What do you think?
Dude, it's awesome.
JR, will you come over to my house and just MC New Year's Eve for me and my daughters?
Little Amazon action. And, being a bigger fella, when it shows up, you put it on, you go, oh, wait, this might work. Yeah. So hopefully it works for the YouTube.
Did you do the Chris Farley thing with it when you put it on?
Big guy in a small suit.
All right. So, gentlemen, over the course of this past weekend, unfortunately, I was friggin' sick as a dog.
Oh.
Like, I don't know, cold, something or the other came up and it got me for a couple days. I am not very good at sitting still and just watching TV. It's just like, I wish I was better at it, but I get antsy. But I was too sick to really do much of anything. So on Saturday, I watched both parts, and I can almost guarantee you that both of you guys are a fan of this guy. But I watched both parts on HBO Max of the brilliant documentary about Billy Joel. Are you guys Billy Joel fans?
Yeah, I like the music. Yeah.
Jared's kind of dressed like Billy Joel.
A little bit of the Piano Man. Guys, this was such an absolutely phenomenal documentary. And listen, I am a big fan of music documentaries as a whole. Like, I even watch them on bands that I don't like because I just find them to be interesting. Like the Eagles documentary is friggin' brilliant.
Wow.
And I hate those guys. I cannot stand them, but it's so good. But the Billy Joel story, there are so many layers to it. And even in just watching it, you just forget how many massive hits that this guy had. And then on top of being the performer and everything else, it was just a really great watch. I did watch it pretty much in one sitting, which was just shy of 6 hours.
Oh, my God, Doc.
Which was was a lot of Joel for a 24-hour time span, but it's absolutely fantastic. And if you're looking for something to kind of watch, I know there's a million other things out there, but it's really outstanding.
One of my biggest regrets, I had a chance to go see him when he was at Ballpark Village the first time around, and I was going to take my dad, and I was like, not a big deal. And then my dad found out, and he still gives me crap today. He's like, how did you not take me to go see Billy Joel?
Man, in 1994, I think it was the year I graduated high school, was the first year that the Billy Joel Elton John tour came to the Old Busch Stadium.
I was there.
Were you?
Yep.
Oh man, I had a group of friends that went, but I could not get the money together for that ticket at that time. And dudes, there's not very many shows in which that I, regret not going to.
Yeah.
That is absolutely one.
I was just above the third base dugout at Old Busch, probably about 20 rows back. And the cool thing was at the very end of the show, they come on stage, they do their thing. And it looked like they went off stage and the power alley to get out of the outfield fence and then to get in the back area of the stadium. And then there was a limousine waiting for them at the street level.
Dang.
And the two of them just jumped in the limo out of there. And that was the end. And
That's incredible.
It was awesome.
Bing, bang, boom. Yeah. It's so amazing to me when you reach that sort of status. One way or the other. You're either hanging out in your dressing room for the next couple of hours and it's turning into a big old party that's going to last for a while, or you are literally getting the hell out of Dodge and are back in your hotel within 15 minutes.
Oh, I know.
It's very, and those two rock stars at that particular time, I would bet you that Billy would probably want to party a little bit. Elton, so
hang
maybe they
around
just took
and enjoy it.
Absolutely so. But
I tell my dad all the time, the two people that I wish I could have seen in person that he got to see was one, Michael Jackson, and two, Elvis Presley. And I told him that because I watched the docu movie or whatever, I guess you'd call it, of Elvis.
Yeah.
And I tell him all the time, God, that must have been incredible to be around at that time to see him and that craziness taking place.
Dude, I couldn't even imagine. My aunt Dee, saw Elvis at Kiel.
South County Mall?
No.
That was later on in his career.
At Kiel Auditorium, like way, obviously way back in the day. She was one of those screamers, and I couldn't even imagine.
Couldn't even fathom it. I know.
could not even imagine. The another one that I regret here, real quick, and then we'll move on to hockey. I had the chance to see the Kiss show in St. Louis that ended up being, I believe, the final live Alice in Chains performance with Lane Staley. If not, in total, the last one for sure in St. Louis. And I didn't want to go to the show because I've never liked Kiss. And I just didn't want to go and fake it, even for Alice in Chains. And man, do I really, really regret that a lot.
Wish you would have faked it.
I absolutely.
Donnie, I was there. No, I'm joking.
All of these.
Dude, you're one-upping me on all the shows that I wish I would have went to.
JR absolutely dresses up like Kiss.
Oh, 100%. And pulls it off.
Full
and
face mask, yeah.
Dude, absolutely.
You don't
Got
have
the
enough
shoulder
you don't
pads.
have enough makeup.
All right. So, guys, I feel like the game last night, and we don't like to date ourselves, even though I seem like I'm doing that every time we podcast these days. But in watching the Blues and Sabres last night, to me, it was just kind of a microcosm of my year as a fan, of this year as a fan. I watched the first period, and I'm like, hell yeah. Mm-hmm. Boys came to play tonight. This is going to be a good game. We're going to break this winning streak from the Sabres. This is going to be I'm going to feel good going into the podcast tomorrow. All right. I went
Then
to,
what happened?
Yeah. Then the second and third period. And guys, it is just, man, we talk about it all the time. This is not necessarily anything that is new, but it is just insanely frustrating to watch a team that can look so freaking different. They remorph over the course of a game, and sometimes it's into something bad, sometimes it's crazy to me, the ups and downs here. And it was such a crummy second and most of the third period, and then late in the third, they turn it on and you kind of see what they're capable of, even though they can't make up the difference. Last night, to me, it's just like another, here is what they are. I mean, it's just what they are.
But you wanted them to have good starts. What else you want?
Yeah, true. We've been complaining about that for the first 2 months of the season.
It would be amazing. Hear me out. A good start, a good middle, a good end.
Man, that's a lot to ask for, Donnie.
Absolutely.
What would the most difficult part of that be? Probably a middle, right?
I mean, especially for this
second
team.
period.
You're the writer. What's the most difficult part? The start, middle, or end?
Well, that's all of it. Yeah. And it's getting it done on time, too.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But as you guys are watching it, did you kind of sort of feel the same way that I did?
To me, you nailed it. It's the microcosm of what this season has been. There's been checkpoints this season to where they'll have two games to where it's like, oh, okay, they're figuring it out. We saw them do that when they beat Winnipeg, when they beat Florida. Sprinkled in between was the Rangers game, but it was like, oh, okay, but they're figuring it out. This is pretty good. You got points in all three of them. You're playing well. And then the game against Tampa. Mm-hmm. It's every single stretch that you feel like you're building something, they just turn back into what they were. Like the princess, the carriage goes back into the pumpkin. That's what this is for the Blues. And that game the other night, or that game last night, you saw them play well. It started off poorly to where Buffalo scores first off of a turnover. They get a couple of scoring chances, and then they turn it on. And you think it's okay, you end the first period, you just turned it on, you figured out the momentum, and now you take it. And then they just disappear with it. And to me, it's like they picked and choose when they wanted to play. And again, we've talked about this on the podcast. I never like questioning effort from players. But guys, this is the fifth time this season that whether the coach or the captain has questioned the effort of the team. And now we're talking about playing with pride at the end of December, when you're 1 point out of a playoff spot, when you were still one game away from being to 500. So the issue that has been here all season is it's a group of guys that pick and choose when they're going to turn it on. Mm-hmm. And until you figure out how to do it at the first period, the second period, and the third period, these are the results you're going to have. You're going to have an in and out type of team.
Yeah, and they're going to change the roster. We all know that, and they can't change it right now. So what Jim Montgomery has to do is just play the guys who are given the effort. And I like what he's been saying the past couple of days. Mm-hmm. To me, what he's been saying the past couple of days, I don't want to say different, but I think it's just more honesty in terms of, he said that, we're not results oriented, we're process oriented. And that's a cliche in business and sports and every industry, that you want to be process oriented. But, people are saying, hey, how can you take Bergeron out of the lineup? He's been off to a good start after being claimed on waivers. Well, guess what? Jim Montgomery said he's leveled off. He isn't doing X, Y, Z, and he's going to be a healthy scratch. He did the same thing with Robbie Fabry a couple games ago. And so Matthew Joseph got back in the lineup last night. I didn't think he looked great. He's probably going to pop out of the lineup. So, I'm going to talk to Jim Montgomery a little bit more and probably write something at The Athletic about this. But, this is the period where Jim Montgomery has to set the standard. It doesn't matter if the Blues win 3 in a row, they lose 3 in a row. If you're playing the right way, you're going to stay in the lineup. And if you're not, you're going to come out. And, they've got some injuries that they've had to deal with, and that's going to cause some decisions to be made in terms of who's playing and who's not. Like somebody said, well, he's not playing. Why is he in the lineup? Well, guess what? There's 3 guys out still injured. Now, the bigger question with all this is going to be, but what about the top guys? Because last night, we all know that Thomas Buchnevich line, Naders, it didn't work out. And then Kyrou, just 4 shifts in the third period. God. Jim Montgomery said he's not moving his feet, and I've got to create a standard here. So to me, whatever happens the rest of the year, that's what this season is going to be all about.
Well, and real quick, because I know we'll get into the Kyrou thing, but you see this happen with a lot of in-between teams. Like, I think the biggest example is probably the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, they have not been able to cross that threshold of what they wanted. And what did they do? They brought in Craig Berube to build a different type of standard. Now, it's not going well for them right now. People are questioning Craig Berube, but it's somewhat similar to the Blues, to where, look, you can keep questioning the coach all you want. But, and by the way, nobody's questioning the coach here in St. Louis. I'm talking about Toronto. You can question the coach all you want, but at some point you look at the team and you say, the DNA has been here for the longest time and we're getting the exact same results. So at what point do we try and say, no, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to leave this individual in place. He is trying to establish this type of winning culture. Ken Hitchcock did this. That's why they brought him in back in 2011, because they felt like they had a younger core and they brought in an established coach that could establish that type of winning culture. They did it with Berube in 2018, 2019, and it worked. And I do agree with JR. Jim Montgomery is looking at this saying, guys, there's no more of this in and out. If you want to play, if you want to get shifts, if you want to play on the top line, you have to play to the standards that is St. Louis Blues hockey. I mean, Otto Stenberg's been playing on the top line every now and then. Why? Because he's going out there, he's in the right place defensively, he's always after the puck, and he's hitting guys. Like, that is what has been lacking for a lot of players. And I loved his answer when he was talking about why Bergeron comes out. And he said, his game is dipped, but he also went bigger picture. Guys just have not taken their opportunity that's been given to them. How many times have we been talking about a revolving door of, well, this guy's in the lineup for a game and that guy's in the lineup for a game. Well, here's a guy that gets the top 6. You know how many line combinations they have gone with Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich this year? They've done 8 of them. They've done 8 different players with those guys. Nobody has taken the opportunity that's been placed in front of him and said, I'm not giving this roster spot back.
All right. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted by the Kyrou question, but we got to talk about it again. I mean, we got to talk about it again when one of your best players gets 3-4 shifts in the third period. My question is Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich, is every player on this team being held to the same standard? The reason that I'm asking is Robert Thomas doing all of those little things? Is Booch doing all of those little things that should keep them out of the conversation of having their minutes taken back? I mean, I just, oh God, I'm sorry. I'm just sick of talking about it. Mm-hmm. For me as a Blues fan, for Jordan Kyrou as a player, like, dear Lord, baby Jesus, how many times do we have to have this conversation? And here we are talking about moving his feet. come on,
Yeah, no,
guys.
it's
Like,
Donnie.
this is maddening, man. And I've been even trying to stick up for the dude, but at the end of the day, it seems to me that it is not hard right now for you to do what you need to do, even if it's not scoring, which, God, we need you, but we just need the basics of you right now to go out and play your ass off every single shift. We can't get the basic thing done. Why would we think that this would ever change?
And it's across the board. So to answer your question.
And I'm sorry that was like 3 questions in one, but Jiminy Christmas, I'm so sick of this guy.
No, you're right. And you know what, Alex, it's across the board. It's Thomas, it's Buchnevich, it's Kyrou. Are they all held accountable to the same level? You know, it's almost impossible to answer that because I don't see it through the coach's eyes. Mm-hmm. You know, he sees things where, you know, Buchnevich scored a couple goals the other night. Looks like he's, you know, coming around a little bit. Then you keep him in the lineup, you keep him playing, you know, regular ice time. And, you know, with Thomas, you know, you hate to say it, but when he got the breakaway on the shorty, a star in this league finds a way to finish that or at least make the goalie work.
Yeah, I was going to say, hit the net.
Hit the net. I'm not saying Thomas is not a star, but you can't come out of that situation with a puck that hits the glass 3 sheets over from the net. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's a shorthanded situation. I get it. It's not it's a breakaway, and that ties the game. And I think that, you know, for Thomas, and I believe that Jim Montgomery was talking about him as one of the guys last night. You know, he said our next play speed. And when Jim Montgomery says our next play speed, he's talking about that when something happens, you lose the puck, you turn it over, that you are just immediately turning around and back in transition and back on defense, and you can't be staring at the rafters upset about the shot that you just...
And I'm not trying to interrupt you, but man, it took him forever to get back to the bench, and you could see him friggin' dragging his ass the whole damn time in which he's doing it. I know you're frustrated. I cannot even imagine how frustrated you are, but you're also the best goddamn player on our team, and we need you to act like it. Like, we need you to get your head right back into the game to keep friggin' going.
Well, and guess what? That ties into the last subject that we were just talking about is the standard. Look, you know, so whether Jim Montgomery can, let's say, sit Thomas a shift or 2 in the third like he did Jordan Kyrou, you know, the younger players are watching this. And that's why Doug Armstrong always talks about when you bring a guy up, what kind of situation do you want to put him in? You want to put him in a situation where, you know, they're learning how we play and what we do and what we don't do. And, you know, whether Snuggerud, Dvorsky, Stenberg, whoever, you know, see the staring into the rafters, the taking a while to get back to the bench, you know, they need to see, you know, what is Jim Montgomery's reaction to this? So that's what I'm saying. There's so much going on right now besides wins, losses, and, you know, can the Blues make the playoffs? Like, this is establishing a culture for what this group that is coming in and is going to be the makeup of this Blues team is going to play like and look like and feel like and talk like for the next several years. So that's what Jim Montgomery has to emphasize.
You know, the worst thing is, and I was thinking about this after the game last night, guys, I don't even know what I want them to do from here on out. Like, I don't know if I want, this is going to sound bizarre, I don't know if I want them to go on any kind of roll and give us these continued playoff possibility hopes. But then again, I don't want to see them completely eat it. I'm just in a real, like, tumultuous time as a fan where I just don't quite know what I want here.
You're stuck.
I'm just very, very frustrated, and I don't want to be like, trade him. And I know I've been on Robert Thomas for the last couple of podcasts. I absolutely know that. But I think that your best players have to have almost a standard even of themselves
every night.
And I question that with him often, man. And I don't love that because there have been times that we've talked on this podcast, specifically after games, where Tomer has been put up against the best players in the league, McDavid, whomever, and he's locked them down and looked amazing. I love this guy. It's just so freaking frustrating because, you know, that I saw that last night when he missed that break. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, man, well, you missed it. Now get your ass back to the bench and change. You know what I mean? Like, let's
well,
go.
And he did
let's
too.
go.
Like he missed that, and then he went to the bench and he came back out on the next penalty kill, and he actually created a scoring chance that was missed by Otto Stenberg when he was going to the front of the net.
Yeah.
So like
Boy, that was a hell of a play too.
You give him credit. I mean, he generates offense, and going back to the question of are these guys held to the same standard as Kyrou? They should be. I think the reason Jordan Kyrou was talked about last night was because the question was asked to Jim Montgomery, why did he only take 4 shifts? Jim Montgomery answered the question, and he was honest about it. And on one hand, I can see what he's saying. Like, did Jordan Kyrou look like the fastest skater on the ice last night? Because he is the fastest skater, one of the fastest skaters in the National Hockey League. No. There was a play, the first goal that was scored, the puck came up into the middle of the ice, and it was right within reach of Jordan Kyrou. He didn't go after it. The puck stayed in the zone, and then it turned into Mayu turning the puck over, Buffalo scoring. That's a puck that if you're moving your feet, puck's coming out of the zone, and that goal doesn't happen. So I understand where Jim Montgomery's coming from there. But I can also say the same thing on 2 separate occasions to where did it feel like Robert Thomas was out there shutting down the opposition and generating as much offense as you need? Did it feel like Pavel Buchnevich was playing that lockdown defensive style and also creating opportunities in the offensive zone? I didn't think that top line was very good offensively last night. So on one hand, I see what he's coming from with Jordan Kyrou because he was asked about it, and I know what his answer was. But I also don't know if I look at it and say, well, if Jordan Kyrou gets sat for 4 shifts and that's it in the third period, I think I'd be doing that with a couple of other guys as well. Now, I understand you're trying to win that hockey game, but like JR mentioned, if you're trying to set that standard, there have been a lot of times where you'll see both of those guys, your top players, skating slowly backwards into the other end and a play developing that they're not getting back on.
But healthy scratch earlier in the year, 4 shifts last night. Will it change? Does it change anything? That's why I think this roster is going to change. And I'm not saying
you're right.
particular, but going back to your question, do you pull for these guys to make the playoffs? Do you care if they eat it? To me, it doesn't matter because the roster is going to change regardless. Last year, what they did with that post-Four Nations run and the playoff win, that might have kept a few guys around. It's not going to keep a few guys around this year.
Yeah, even if they go on a run, because I'm with JR. Like, Doug Armstrong's comments to you guys a couple of weeks ago said it all.
Yep.
I mean, he was blunt. He was honest. It doesn't matter if this team is a point in a playoff spot, a point out of a playoff spot. I think Doug knows where this team is, and he's not happy with it. He knows Steen is taking over. I don't expect them to have this same roster in a couple of months. And I don't think they expect it as well, which is probably why you're seeing this in and out style. It feels like everybody is walking on eggshells, and Jim Montgomery is trying to get these guys locked in, playing to a certain standard to have success.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a break. Let's come back. More of the Last Minute Blues podcast on the way. All right, so JR, you put out a fine piece just a couple of days ago that I did read.
From start to finish?
From start to finish. Thank you very much.
Look
as I do
guy.
all of JR's articles.
Not all
and
of
this
them.
whole idea that I don't is just not. Anyway.
I think that was 22,071 words, so that you read a lot.
Could you go?
I'm a reader.
I didn't like that.
dicks.
This article, this article that you're talking about. So you try to keep them in that 1800 range, and so I finished that one, and it's like 22. It's like, oh, do I take some of this?
Well, it was a really fascinating article, and I think that the from the outside perspective looking in, they might call it a goalie controversy in St. Louis, but it's not. I think it's really as simple as the better goalie right now getting more time and more games right now as the season goes on. And we have seen over the course of the last couple of years, there have been times where Benner has maybe been down and Hofer's played a couple of more games. I think this might be more of an extended run. I think it gives us a really good idea of what having Joel Hofer as the 1A could look like. But I don't think that this is like your traditional sort of goalie controversy, really. Do you?
No, I don't think so. I think this is a situation where they're playing the guy who's playing the best hockey right now. And that's
period, point blank in the story.
Not just on this team. Joel Hofer's had the best save percentage of anybody since late November with 8+ starts.
Yeah, coming out of Thanksgiving, he's got the best, well, he had the best save percentage. I'm sure it's dipped since that Buffalo Sabres loss. But yeah, November 27th up until last night, he had the best save percentage in the National Hockey League.
In the National Hockey League, yeah. And so, Donnie, he's he's establishing himself as a capable 1A goalie in this league. And Jordan Binnington, we all know the year that the goaltending position has been for the Blues in general, but, Hofer earlier in the year and Binnington for a large portion of the year, and he hasn't played well lately. And so, I was a little bit surprised, guys, I got to admit. So we had Jim Montgomery after practice on Sunday, and I just lobbed out the question because I was writing about the goaltenders, and I wanted to know who was going to start last night. Alex, I heard you on pre and post. I agreed with you. I thought, it's Binnington, and then maybe you come back with Hofer against Colorado. And Donnie, a lot of times we say, if you care to say who's your goalie, for tomorrow night's game, and sometimes they'll say, well, watch who comes out for warmups, and nope, he said we're gonna ride the hot hand, guys. And they went on for 6 or 7 minutes about the goaltending situation. So that's what the Blues have to do right now, and so lots of other stuff in the article. Luke Horak asked Jim Montgomery, do you think the pressure of the Olympics, making Team Canada and being the starter has weighed on Jordan Binnington? He said, yeah, I would think it would have to, and so he was pretty open and honest about what he felt about the situation.
And you even got Jake the Snake in there to comment about Joel, which I thought was very cool.
He's the best. So he had a game, I think Sunday, when I reached out to him, and he said, yeah, call you tomorrow. And so just, he's great. He knows the situation. He knows St. Louis. He knows the fans. He knows, he knows Jordan Binnington. He knows Joel Hofer. He goes, I've been watching Joel Hofer, keeping tabs on him, and I really like him. He's a big goalie. He's learning to play with his size. And, then we got to Davey Alexander, because Jake Allen has had Dave Alexander as some form of instructor since he was 14 years old. Yeah. And so he knows how Dave works. He could offer some insight into that. And then I flat out asked him, look, Jordan Binnington is a guy who was taking starts from you in 2018-19, and now similar situation here. How do you think Benner's going to react? And he's always going to react fine. Benner, he's matured a lot the last 5 years. He's still thought of as one of the best goaltenders in the league, even though here in St. Louis, we might not think that's the case because of, how this year's gone, so on and so forth. But, Allen said really respected across the league, and he said he'll react just fine. He'll work harder and get himself back in.
And if you think about this too, Joey made this point on pregame with me last night. Jordan Binnington's been through this twice, and he's been on both sides of it. He took it from Jake Allen when they won the cup, but he also had it taken away from him when Ville Husso went on that hot run. What was that, 4 or 5 years ago? And he got it back. So if there was a guy going into this circumstance to where there's a hot goaltender that's outplaying you, that's younger, and you're losing the net for a time being, Jordan Binnington's probably the best guy for it to happen to, because he understands it. Yeah. He's been on both sides of this, but he also is a competitor, and he realizes, I'm going to get this net back. He's going to get the start against Colorado, and he goes out there and performs well against Colorado. Well, guess what? Maybe you got another hot hand that goes. You don't have success in the National Hockey League today unless you've got two goaltenders that can win for you at different times. And that's why there's no controversy. Ville Husso gets a lot of the starts now, which is probably good for how much hockey Jordan Binnington has played.
Joel Hofer gets
thank you. Gets a lot of the starts now.
Story. Husso's back.
Who's back? Jordan Binnington, Ville Husso, Jake Allen. There's a lot of names. At least I didn't say Thomas Greiss. That's a good one on me. Joel Hofer is going to get a lot of the bulk of the starts now, which is good because Binnington has played a lot of hockey this season and really the last few seasons. And post-Olympics, I would expect Jordan Binnington to get a bulk of those starts if they're chasing down a playoff spot. But this is how this goes. And again, Jordan Binnington is the perfect guy to witness this and also not get frustrated with it and be like, I lost my spot, and then start a whole controversy. He's going to look at this and, cool, I got to get it back. And he will.
I think what's really kind of amazing to me and interesting about this situation, just kind of from an outsider, is one, how just incredibly insane the goalie position is in general, and how you can go from being lights out for a month to eating it to back to lights. I mean, it just seems like the hots and the colds of it all are amazing. And then the mental aspect of being able to keep yourself in that game is incredible to me as well. And I wish, and I know that I wish the Blues would let David Alexander talk, because I would love to know just more of the idiosyncrasies of what he does to keep goalies balanced when it's going bad, or when they're on fire, or when there's a trade speculation, or whatever the case may be. That position, amongst almost any others in sports, is so fascinating to me, the mental aspect of it.
It really is. And I'm still in awe 20 years later covering this team in terms of how these goaltenders deal with that, would deal with that mindset. Like if I have a setback in life, or, you're struggling in this area or that area, it bugs you and it just continues to gnaw at you. And a lot of times I don't overcome it. And you got a situation where Joel Hofer, like everything was getting in on him, right? A couple months ago. Yeah. And to overcome it and be where he is. And so, yes, there wasn't a ton of detail because we didn't have, Dave commenting in the piece. But Joel Hofer, he said, I keep a journal. And Donnie, at that point, I'm sitting next to him and, you want to ask him more and you want to learn more about this journal. At the same time, this is a little private black book that he's writing his thoughts into. You kind of was, hey, can I see that journal?
Let me see that journal. Where you hiding at?
I'm like, a little black journal? Yeah, a little black in the book. Can you tell me a little bit? And
JR's digging through his locker when he goes on the ice. Where's his locker?
Yeah. And so he just said that, look, before games, after games, I write thoughts. How do I feel? How did I react to certain situations? How did I do this? And I've never been someone good, about keeping a journal or going back in time to look at thoughts and make that, make me feel better about the current situation. Yeah. But he said that's one of the things that helps him.
That made so much sense to me too, because I believe like it was something about like how he felt mentally when things were going well, that he would go back and read when maybe things weren't going as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me too, because like, okay, so I go back and I read 3 weeks ago and and they won that game. And I read that this is how I was feeling tonight. And, or this is how I felt afterwards. Like, okay, well, how do you recreate that now?
Yeah.
Like,
if
you're still in a negative mindset because you've lost so many, how do you take that page from that book and say, okay, I'm good again?
Yeah. They're most fascinating specimens in sports to me just because of that, to where it's like you have to wipe away whatever just happened and get yourself back into the right place. And like, that's not an easy thing to do when your job is solely relying on the guys in front of you. Like your job is that I hope my guys in front of me are on tonight, because otherwise I'm going to have a rough game. Like a couple of years ago, we were talking about how bad Jordan Binnington was. Guy was giving every backdoor tap in was taking place on this guy, but it's all, well, Bennington's one of the worst in the NHL.
Right. It was that national kind of view of Benner that was just completely unfair.
You're talking about Bennington. You said Vincent.
Did I really?
You said Rienda.
Did I say Fred?
Dude, that would have been amazing.
Did I say Fred Brathwaite again? Oh my gosh.
Dude, Fred Brathwaite. Dude, and when you said Thomas Greiss, I just thought of good puck, bad puck.
So the guy who's got the puck.
Yeah. And that guy threw the Kevin Hayes puck at Hot Shots. It's still sitting in the bathroom.
Still in the parking lot. So let's do this, guys. Let's take a final break. Let's come back. I want to ask you about some of the young players for this Blues team and kind of how you think that they're playing so far. So we'll be back. Last segment, Last Minute Blues podcast coming next. All right, so gentlemen, one of the
Whoa! I'm not wearing the sparkling coat.
Right.
My gosh!
Just throwing the jab when you're just absolutely not expecting.
He's got the
I got the Rocky shirt on.
Rocky Italian.
By the way, I started watching all of the Rockies with my girls, and none of them really like it.
Yeah, I can't imagine they would.
They were watching it and they're like, Daddy, why is this guy mumbling? And I'm like, this is the best film that was ever created. What are you talking about?
Okay, real quick here, and then we'll go back. Best Rocky movie?
4.
Like 1, right?
No, dude, it's
2
Rocky.
was better than 1.
Dude, the answer, JR, come on, man. It's Rocky 4.
Actually,
4, 2, 3, 1, 5.
I don't think I got the 4. I did like you when you were sick.
Get to 4. How did you not get to 4? Struggle, man. It's a good and evil thing, Jeremy.
I need to get sick.
It's the best workout scene ever.
I'm so disappointed. I don't even know if the podcast can go on.
We have to kick him off. That's it.
I did hear 5's terrible, though, right?
5's terrible.
Right.
5 is awful.
5 is awful.
But then when they brought the franchise back with like the Rocky and the Rocky Balboa movies, I thought that those were good.
Rocky Balboa was better than people give it credit for. And I know people didn't like it because he was old, but it was still awesome. And I love the Creed films. 5 was the worst without question.
Oh, it was terrible. Dude, you because not only is the movie good, but the soundtrack is banging, man. What do we
I
got?
still work out to Hearts on Fire today.
Oh, dude. And James Brown, Living in America.
Oh, yeah.
And you get the James Brown performance right before Apollo dies.
I am so disappointed
Alex, why'd you have to wear that shirt?
I am so disappointed in you, JR.
I'm so sorry.
Any other shirt. I'm not taking shrapnel right now.
Sweatpants to match it, too. Like, I put it on every once in a while.
It's just so good.
JR,
I want to see how you get this back on.
I'm so upset with you.
Back to the original question, which I was going into break for. So one of the, I would say one of the good things about the Blues having these injuries is that we have gotten to see a flood of maybe not a flood, but a bunch of the next generation Blues players. In Dvorsky at first, and now you got Stenberg. And what have you guys seen from the youngsters? And I want to start specifically with Logan Mailloux. And I know that his position in the lineup was already established before all these injuries got started, but he did have that spell where he went to the AHL for a bit and then came back up. What have you seen from this young man? One of the things that I enjoy, as I'm sure that you will not be surprised, he's got a little scrap in him.
Look at that.
He'll mix it up if he wants to every once in a while.
Setup, so he says, all the young players and the way they're playing and the progress and the Dvorskys who's playing well and Stenbergs. Tell me about the guy who was a -3 last night.
Thanks a lot.
Didn't plan that well, as you can tell.
He's got a lot of Rocky IV in him, JR. I don't know if you know what that is.
Never seen it, so I can't make the correlation there.
But also, too, before you even get started, like with any of these young players that we're about to talk about, a game like Mailloux had last night is part of the learning and maturation process of it all. And I know that that's a cop-out thing to say, but it really is true.
Yeah. It really is. And honestly, I think that he's looked a lot more confident and been a lot more reliable since the call-up from Springfield. I will say this, though, he's got the penchant for the turnover, right? There are just a lot of situations where he's got the puck in the corner, he's starting the exit, and, it's a decision, it's a pass, it's something that leads to a turnover, and that's what happened last night, on that first goal. So, unfortunately, kind of the bugaboo with the turnover thing is still going on, but I think by and large, if you had to grade him, since coming back from Springfield, I would say C+, B-,
average.
Yeah. So, I think he's been pretty good.
And the one thing about Mailloux and those turnovers, do you believe that is simply a product of him being a young player and learning his position?
I'll answer you this way. I'd rather see him doing that than, not being physical or not being able to, skate his way out of situations
or not generate any offense.
Yeah, not those are things that were like, well, where's the hockey player?
Yeah.
We see the hockey player. It's just that he needs to be refined.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, like, the turnovers are going to happen. Like, that's the rawness. I mean, he still hasn't even played 100 games in the NHL, and we've heard guys say you're not an NHL established defenseman until you play 200 or 300 games. So there's still rawness there, and I mean, some of those decisions just come with the understanding of, hey, I can skate this out of the zone rather than try and make the pass. So I'm sure that's just raw Logan Mailloux. But to me, I'm not going to judge the defensive side of it until you're a couple hundred games in. Offensively, he knows what to do. And that's the part that he wasn't doing early on. He was so worried about playing defense that there was no offense. Now he's taking shots. He's putting pucks on net. I'll accept a couple of slip-ups here and there. He looks like a much more confident player. And to be honest, I think that was the first game, one of very few games since he's been called back up from Springfield that you noticed of, oh yeah, that was a rough night for Logan Mailloux. We were doing that every other game he played in at the first portion of it. So to me, that was just another example of, yeah, he's still got some growing to do, but you see what the potential is and why they traded for this guy.
All right, so let's talk about Double D, Mr. Dvorsky.
Double D.
What have you, obviously, the injuries have absolutely made this so that, he didn't look like he was going to be going back down to the AHL anyway, but these injuries are obviously, is a better way to say this. Is this play keeping him here? If the Blues did not have any injuries, would he still be here? Would he still be in the lineup every night?
That's a good question. I think he's been good. If they were a contending team, third place in the Central, and everybody was healthy, they had NHL players, maybe he'd be in the conversation. But I think with the way he's played, it's not, you don't look at it and say he needs to go back down at all. Like I think he's holding his own. He is noticeable more nights than some nights he's not. But I think that this is all good for what the Blues are trying to do. Like him being in the NHL is where they need to get him, and he needs to be a part of this team. So, if they were to move, let's say, Schenn before the trade deadline, like Dalibor Dvorsky is going to be the number 2 center every night the rest of the season after that move is made. Dalibor Dvorsky is likely going to be the number 2/number 3 center at the start of next season. So, yeah, I think he's holding his own. I don't see anything where, you say, hey, he cost the Blues there. You had 3-on-3 overtime.
There's some rawness.
Some things like that. But.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. Like, defensively, seems like he understands how to perform, and he's got the aggressiveness. He's got a little nasty to his game. I think I would just like to see more offense from Dvorsky.
Yeah.
And it does feel like he falls into the same realm of some of these other guys that are just the pass-first mentality. And I don't know if that's who Dalibor Dvorsky is. I think Dvorsky's more of a shoot-first guy.
Yeah.
But there's so much more that goes into playing center at the NHL level. Like, you've got to worry about being the number 1 guy back. You've got to worry about being sound defensively, winning faceoffs, shutting down the other team's line, while also trying to generate offense for your wingers and create chances for yourself. So offensively, I think people will look at it and say, man, this guy's got 5 goals and only 1 at even strength, and he's played, 20-something games at the NHL level? I would hope that's going to come still. He's got offensive upside. It's just a matter of the understanding of how to play in the NHL, which to me, it's good that he's here and he's not going back down, because you need him to develop that understanding of how to play at the NHL level and find ways to generate offense.
And keep in mind that Jim Montgomery did say a couple weeks ago that when they switched from the zone defense to the man-to-man, the most work increase was the center position. So he said, whereas Thomas had to do this before, Dvorsky, now they've got to do X, Y, Z. Yeah. It's more entailed.
And because this team just does not generate any offensive zone time, more times than not, you're playing in your own end. And it's hard for guys to generate offense when 45 seconds of your shift are spent trying to get the puck back in the own end of the ice.
Otto Stenberg.
I 2 weeks ago, you would have asked me that. I'd say, yeah, I'll probably go back down when they're healthy. Now I'm going to put him in the same camp as Dalibor Dvorsky. I don't know why you would send him back. He's got 4 points in 5 games. He seems to always be in the right place defensively. The guy's getting penalty kill time from Jim Montgomery. He's playing.
He was in his first game in the NHL. Yeah. Not to interrupt.
And on 3-on-3 overtime. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
On top of that, he's been on the ice when the team has been down by a goal late in the third period. He's been on the ice when the team is up by a goal late in the third period. So defensively, Jim Montgomery trusts him. Offensively, he always finds ways to make guys around him better. Like last night, he doesn't score his first NHL goal because, he doesn't probably go wide enough to the net on that tip in that Thomas is trying to set up. I think Jim Montgomery mentioned. But the fact that he had that scoring chance tells me everything I need to know. I don't know what his upside is. I hope the upside is a guy that could be a top 6 winger for you. But man, this guy right now is a middle 6 winger at the NHL level. And then once again, the best thing that can happen for this Blues team is continue to let him figure out what the NHL level is so that you go into the offseason and by next year you say, okay, now I know what I need to do.
Well, now he's going to be Pius Suter because Suter's out 4 weeks with the high ankle sprain and get reevaluated. And yesterday, Jim Montgomery said, a comparable comp, when you comp players, Stenberg has a lot of similarities to Suter. That's not to say to Blues fans that, hey, listen, this guy's Suter.
Going to be Suter.
Kind of vanilla type player who just does all the good things. Jim Montgomery believes he has more upside. And that touch pass to Schenn last night, that's just phenomenal. So he hears Schenn, he drops it back, and what a great pass Schenn scores. And then I really do like, and we go back to the standard that Jim Montgomery's trying to keep here, is when he was asked about Stenberg not finishing off that pass from Thomas. And he said, I would like to have seen him. He's holding him accountable. Like he could, this is a young player who's played 5-6 games in the NHL. And Jim Montgomery said, could have said anything, just not maybe detailed the situation. He said, hey, here's what we want to see from this guy. And they're going to talk to him about it. So all these players are learning, but to hear Jim Montgomery express how he thinks this Otto Stenberg can be a player in this league. He's winning one-on-one battles. He's doing things even beyond Montgomery's expectations 6 games into his NHL career, but they know there's more. They want to untap it. And, last night was an example of he could have finished off that play if he puts himself in a little bit different position.
I look at this as when they're healthy, which, as we said last week on the episode, like these things always work themselves out. I don't see how you send Stenberg, Dvorsky, or Mayu ever back down to the AHL.
can't.
You let them develop now because your team is a below 500 team. You're inconsistent. You're probably going to move pieces off of this roster. You want them to have higher level roles this season that might be a lost season so that next year they're ready to play a competitive brand of hockey.
I have been, pretty much in love with Jimmy Snuggerud since the second that he got here. Love that guy.
Hard not to.
Absolutely. Honestly, I feel like he's so good, I kind of forget how young he is. What do you outside of the injury, and I know it's lots of positives. Has there been anything for Snuggerud where you go, you know what? He needs to work on that a little bit more. And just to be overly critical of a guy that we love and that has really been a fantastic player since the moment he put the sweater on.
I don't know if he needs to work on it more. He just has to get that shot first mentality. Like he's one of the few right-handed shots on the team that every team you need to have those guys. He just needs to shoot more. Yeah. Like to me, that's one of the guys that if I'm Jim Montgomery, I'm looking at anytime you have the puck on your stick, you shoot it. You got an elite shot. Don't worry about passing it. Don't worry about looking for that extra play, put it on net. Because that's what I think Jimmy Snuggerud's brand is going to be. You're going to be a hell of a player, and guys, our goalies aren't going to want to have to deal with you. I mean, you see the tenacity on the puck. You see how good he is in his own end. I mean, that play that he scored on last night against Buffalo, that was all from him working and stealing the puck from Samuelsson behind the net. But he's one of those guys that I think can beat goaltenders off of the rush. He's just got an elite shot, and I'd love to see him on a nightly basis have 3 or 4 shot attempts on net.
Yeah, and Alex talked about that goal that he scored last night, and 2 things. First of all, and we talked to Snuggerud after the game about that, he didn't think he could get position or get the puck if he goes to Samuelsson's right. So this is just the smarts that's developing in the NHL because he's getting those games. So he slips into the left side of Samuelsson, gets the stick lift, gets the puck, goes behind the net, and here's what I like even more, feeds with Fabry, right?
Yep.
Fabry tries backhand or stuff, and then the puck comes loose, and Snuggerud's right there. Do you know how many times you could see a player come behind the net, feed the guy in front, and keep skating and maybe go wide or, curl around. But he goes straight to the net after Fabry gets stuffed and he's there to put the goal in. So
to JR's point that we were talking about earlier, that's the DNA that Jim Montgomery is trying to establish with his team.
Yeah, that's what he wants. And you guys may have seen this on social media earlier in the week when I tweeted it, but, every practice starts off with the players stepping out on the ice and just circling around and doing 6 or 7 laps. Ooh, 6, 7, sorry.
6, 7 again, Donnie.
and doing the laps. I knew Donnie liked it. And what did you see? You saw Jim Montgomery and Snuggerud paired together like Alex and his girlfriend at Rock and Roll Arena.
Amen.
1994.
Yeah, but I wasn't backward skating. I couldn't do it. We just had to hold hands and both go the same way.
Then you look to the left, and there's Claude Julien and Dalibor Dvorsky, 2 veteran coaches, 2 young guys, and they're talking to him for the 3 or 4 minutes before practice starts. And we asked Jim Montgomery, what were you talking to Snuggie about? And he said that that's the situation. Hey, what did you think about your first game back? Well, I like some things. I didn't like some other things. Well, you're exactly right. I like this, and I didn't like this. But guess what? You don't need to necessarily work on anything. We're going to knock some rust off, and you're going to get back to being the hockey player that we know that you are. And here he is, game 2.
I love the honesty of Jim Montgomery with his guys. He even had the comment with Tyler Tucker, where he told Tyler Tucker is like, hey, I think you were average the other night. And he said, I could be blunt with him about that. And he says, yeah, I was, and I'll be better. That's the type of chemistry that Jim Montgomery has with those players. And you want those players to respond the same way that Tyler Tucker did.
If you are a Blues fan, which I would assume you are if you're still listening at this part of the podcast.
No, they're 7 minutes.
They're movie fans and very frustrated.
If you have not seen the goal,
the goal
that it's Uric, Adam Uric scored for Czechia in overtime last night. Oh my God, I cannot wait to see this guy in a Blues uniform. He is a defenseman and pulled off a move that I would think a good portion of forwards can't pull off to win the game for his team. It looks like this is a real special player, guys. How soon do you think that we see him in St. Louis playing for the Blues? Or is this a guy that's going to do the AHL seasoning for a season? Are we still a couple of years away from seeing this fella?
I mean, my opinion on it is I think he's here next year to start. Now, this goes with him staying healthy this season, having a good offseason, and he wins training camp because, it's not an easy thing, as we're seeing with Mayu, to just jump at the NHL level. But I mean, they were impressed with him this past training camp this season.
They were going crazy about it.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a guy that was still raw. So, I mean, I don't want to get too excited about it because I seem to do this. I did it last week with Berggren, and then he was out of the lineup the next time. So maybe I need to stop ruining some of these players. But man, everything that I've read about Uric, whether it's been in juniors this season or at this World Juniors tournament thus far, he looks like he's got top 4 potential in the NHL level. Now, there's rawness that's going to come with it, but man, if you're the Blues, you're going to look at this and be like, yeah, we can work with this at the NHL level. So maybe there's some AHL seasoning next year that they want to go with, but my expectation is, like, I don't know if Justin Falk will be here after the trade deadline. They may look at this and say, yeah, he's a top 4 defenseman for us, and at some point, and he's going to get reps next year.
Well, he puts in the work like Rocky did in Rocky 1, and I think that he could be
Rocky didn't even really put in the work in Rocky 1. Not even Rocky 1. It's just called Rocky.
Hey, listen, over the years, and first of all, how about, everybody wants to strip down to the studs, and I'm not saying, that
like Rocky did
the past couple of years that I'm not saying that everybody should be for or against a complete rebuild, but people were upset with the Blues being in the mushy middle and drafting in the middle of the first round. Where guess where they got Adam Uric,
that mushy middle,
in the mushy middle, and so. Donnie, when you talk to Blues people over the years about, hey, this prospect, how's he doing over in Russia? How's he doing in Czechia? How are these guys playing right now? You'll get he looks pretty good. Yeah, big kid. Yeah, has some size. Need to fine tune things. Tim Taylor said, I think he can be a number 1 defenseman in St. Louis.
Yeah, in your article he did. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think he can be it's like, okay, I haven't heard that from anybody ever. And then Corey Pronman is one of the prospect writers at The Athletic. He and Scott Wheeler, and sometimes you'll get internal messages from him, athletic writers, trading notes, and there will be a message that says, hey, so-and-so looked good at this tournament. Corey Pronman sent me a message a couple months ago that said, I think Uric is going to be NHL ready soon. He's 18.
Yeah.
And so, listen, he's going to go through what they all go through in terms of adapting to the NHL. I guess, although Schaefer didn't do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Cale Makar didn't have that.
Makar didn't do that. But, we see what Logan Mayhew's going through, but it looks like Uric's got it. I said to you guys earlier, that goal that he scored, you said, forwards have trouble with that. Here's a defenseman finishing off a play like that. So, is he unseating Colton Parayko next year? Doubtful. Yeah. But, I think it's a situation where he's going to be in the fold, I think, from day one. Like Alex.
I mean, if I remember this correctly, if not for that injury that he suffered the year that he was drafted, they said he could have been one of the top defensemen taken in that draft. And there was like 6 defensemen taken before Uric was taken that year. So they took a chance on a guy that had an injury. Last season, he dealt with a little bit of an injury. And I mean, it's paying off for them right now. Sometimes you need to find those guys like Kirill Kaprizov for the Minnesota Wild. You get that guy late in the second round and look at what he's turned into. Sometimes you got to strike gold with those. And I mean, man, he's not only playing offensively well with that goal, but he's logging like 24 minutes a night in those games for Czechia. He's playing top minutes against some of the better teams in the World Juniors. So I don't know if you'll see him this year because his juniors season probably won't end until after the Blues regular season, if they're not in the playoffs, which I don't know if they're going to be. So you're probably looking at seeing him next year. But man, if you go into training camp and if they do decide to move on from Justin Falk, you're going to have the upper hand on being a top 4 defenseman next year.
So not only do you think that he's got a shot at making the team and making the roster next year, but I'm pretty sure, and Alex, I know that you are on board with Carbonneau making it next year as well. JR, what do you think? And obviously there's a lot of ifs that go into that as well, but this is a young man that was not included on that World Juniors team for Canada, and he seems to be using it to motivate himself. And boy, I don't hate that at all.
Let me say this. You find out right away when you're on the phone with a guy and you talk to him, you find out right away that you don't say things like if you're going to be with the Blues next year, because if you say that to Justin Carbonneau, like he'll stop you in your tracks. Like, I'll be with the Blues next year. So
Neighbors was that way too when we interviewed him. Like, oh, okay, all right, you're an NHL player.
Yeah. So again, I had a chance to talk to Justin Carbonneau last week and a half ago, and wrote a piece, and he. I felt like the maturity in his voice, the things he was talking about. Now, listen, I talked to his coach too, and he said that he's got to learn that at the next level, he's got to play a certain way. We're trying to teach it to him. It's been challenging. We've had a lot of talks with him. So I don't want to paint this as a picture that Justin Carbonneau wakes up every day and goes, defense, defense, defense. I can't. But, he's understanding what it's going to take to play at the next level. And Team Canada bypassing him for the World Juniors was slapping a face to him. But then he came back and said, I know that my defense is a shortcoming right now, and I don't want to give Team Canada a reason not to take me if they do need a late replacement player. But yeah, my defense isn't where it needs to be. So I felt like that was a pretty responsible thing to say. But, I know there's a lot of Blues fans out there. Let the guy come up and score goals, for crying out loud. Yeah. So, it looks like he's going to be that type of guy, power forward. I do think that there's a really good chance, if he has a good training camp, that you could see him on the roster.
It reminds me a lot of what Bolduc was when they said, the offense is there. He's got to figure out how to play defense. And they sent him back to the juniors for another season. They're like, he's got to go work on it. And he did. And then he got a little AHL seasoning. And then it took him about a year. And then he figured it out. I don't know if it's going to happen immediately for Justin Carbonneau. You're probably talking about a couple of years before he gets to that level. But, from where they're at, they may look at it and say, yeah, put him into a role, let him learn on the fly, and find a way to start scoring goals.
I will tell you guys, the one thing that is kind of keeping me sane throughout this freaking roller coaster ride of a couple month season that we've had so far with the Blues is these younger players, is getting to see Dvorsky come up and stay, seeing Stenberg make an imprint, seeing Mayu, even though he does have issues, you do still from time to time see what he can be. And then this next conversation, this next wave of players and draftees, it gives you a lot of reason for hope. Now, unfortunately, it's not going to be near as soon as any of us want to be. I think we got kind of lulled into a that run last year kind of made us think a little, that this was going to happen a little more quicker, or happen quicker than it actually will. Yeah. But there's a lot of reasons for optimism, but it's just going to be a bumpy ride until this all kind of comes together, I think.
Yeah. Well, and just to put a bow on it to the question that you asked earlier, I don't know what I want. I want them to go on a run, want them to get I'd love to see them make a push for the playoffs if everything went right. But I also wonder if what's best for this team is, if they go out there and just get that game-changing talent. And I don't know if you're going to be good or bad enough to get to a pick that can be that, but there's a couple of guys in this tournament also that you just keep an eye on that could be top picks in this year's draft. The one thing, as great as all these pieces are, Dvorsky and Snuggerud and Uric and Carbonneau and with Holloway and Hofer, and it's awesome, but do you have the guy that the moment he steps on the ice can just take the game over? Because that's what Steve Ott told us last night afterwards. He's like, we needed somebody to step onto the ice and just take that game. You don't have that. And that's including Thomas and Kyrou and Buchnevich. You hope, and sometimes drafts don't work out that way. You hope that, if you were to get yourself a top 3 pick.
Ivar Stenberg.
Yeah. Why not recreate the Sedin brothers? Right. Just go out there and you get a guy that when he steps on the ice, one shot can change the game. Sometimes those are hard to find in drafts, regardless of where you're picking. But man, would this team benefit from having one guy that just steps on the ice and says, I can take this game over with one shot, and then you have the rest of the pieces around it. Maybe that's what this team needs.
Are the Blues, this is another question for another day. I'm just kind of wondering, are the Blues the only team, and I'm sure that they are not, that is lacking that sort of instantaneous sort of star power? Because, guys, when I watch the Blues and I see what happens last night where you get a breakaway, where you get, it just seems like the Blues don't have that guy where 9 times out of 10, they're burying that son of a bitch.
Yeah, no, they're not the only team. Calgary doesn't have that.
Right, yeah.
20 teams.
Yeah, Vancouver doesn't have that. I think there's a decent amount of teams that are probably drafting right now in the top picks.
Yeah.
Those are the ones. Seattle doesn't have that. So
it's a much easier said than done sort of situation.
100%.
Well, I don't feel necessarily better about things, but I don't feel necessarily worse.
Just telling us the young guys are keeping you sane right now.
They do, man, and it's just amazing too when you see Snuggerud just rip one. You're like, oh, baby.
Oh yeah.
What is this dude going to be like in a couple of years? Would you say what?
Or shoot one.
All right.
See what he did there?
I
Rip
did.
one.
I did.
one.
I did. I completely left myself open to it, so I got what I deserved.
Yeah, you left yourself open like Creed did in Rocky 2, and he just left himself wide open for that right hook.
I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up.
You should, because I'm still a little frustrated with JR.
Last Minute Blues podcast is brought to you by
Going
Blue
home to
Note
watch
Roofing.
movies.
Roofing, siding, and gutters, your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for a free inspection. For Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, I'm Donnie Fandango. We are live in the Jeff Burton studios. Thanks as always for listening and watching, and let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast on 101 ESPN
is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofing.com for a free inspection.